Good morning, everyone, and thank you so much for joining us all here today. Today's Shia should be the Ilun Nishmas, our dear friend Menachem ben Yisrael Yaakov, as well as my dear aunt Rivka Bas Gavriel Tzvi, and for Zaidi, Reb Shmuel ben Yosef Doiv HaKohen, and the Refuah Shalem Bakarav Mishalom ben Sarachel, Miriam Bas Sarah, and Yair Yeshia ben Chaya Atara. Today we are on page 154 in the art scroll, for those who are following along. And today we are talking about what's called wealth for the sake of honor. Until now we spoke about that there's this person, this foolish person that amasses wealth to make sure that they have enough for the rest of their life. And kind of their concept is I work hard to put away to know I'm comfortable, that I know I'm set for life. Here, the purpose of this individual is that he amasses funds for honor, for the sake of honor. And what that means is that he believes that if he was an extremely wealthy person, people will respect him more. He will have that kind of aura over people where people are going to look up to him. And that's the mistake. That's the mistake that he's making. And let's talk about that. V'yesh b'mnei adam kitos. There are certain classes of people she'enam mishtadlim liknos hamamin laharbes mimenu elu lahavas hakavim b'nei adam, who labor to obtain money and amass a fortune only because they crave honor from the public. V'lases lahem shame, and to make a kind of like a name for themselves. Ve'ein maspik lahem mimenu shum davar. No amount of money is ever enough for such people. Meaning, when you compare it to the person that we spoke about in the last couple of days, that amasses funds for their own personal use and they believe it's all for them, that person at least at some point they realize that, okay, I have enough money to sustain myself for the rest of my life. They make a calculation, it costs me X amount a year, carry it with the one for inflation, and they figure it out. This guy, there's never, ever going to be enough money for this person. Because there's always going to be someone, we're going to see soon, that's going to be wealthier than this guy, and he's always going to need to feel more superior, and that honor is going to leave him if he's not more superior. And so this person is a never happy person. If he's collecting money for the sake of honor, he will never, ever get to that point. V'zech sichlus mehem. This behavior is due to the foolishness on their part. Enrolling assessing that brings true honor in the world, this world and the world to come. Meaning, Rav Av will explain that true honor in both worlds stems from the perfection of character and good deeds that somebody does. Money, collecting money, does not gain a person genuine respect, not on this world and not on the other world. And now let's talk about that part. Rav Av explains why people think that money brings them honor. What's this concept? Where does it come from? The cause of their mistake is that they see the honor that the common folk accord people of wealth. Meaning, they see that people who don't have, or people have very little, how they look up to people who have money is that they give them this extra respect. They're always wanting to hang out with them. And so they say, hey, look, if I have all this money, I'm going to get that same respect. I'm going to get that same honor. They do not realize, however, that the real reason that these common folk, these people, honor the wealthy people is lechamdem ma sheyesh etzlam. It's not because that they're rich and that they're the kind of people that we have to respect. It's because they convey what the wealthy people have. I don't respect you for being rich. I don't think you're a nicer person. I just want what you have. I want your luxuries. I want the nice homes and the nice cars and the vacations. I don't care about you. And hope to be able to draw themselves to the money, and then someday they will have it as well. And they also hope that if I get super close to this rich guy and I hang out with him, then there's maybe one day something will fall out of his pocket and I'll get it as well. I'll hang out in his circles, and what's going to happen is I'm going to rub elbows with the who's, and this way I'm going to become rich as well. And that's the concept. And that's why the person who is a lure of money, he looks at what people naturally do, very often, many people, and so he looks at it and says, wow, I'm going to get that kind of respect, where he's not really respected, but And this is what the mistake is that they don't really care about you personally. They care about what you have. They care about what they can get out of it. The second you don't have, they don't even want to be there anymore. And the folly of the populace who attempt to gain riches by flattering the wealthy. Now, here he tells what's the mistake of the people who they attempt to gain riches by flattering the wealthy people. V'ilu hiskilu v'avinu. If only they would be wise and understand ki ein b'chotam v'loy b'choivam, that it's not within the ability of the power of this wealthy person that they're trying to hang out with the whole time. That this person, this rich person, can't make the decree from Hashem change for you. If you are hanging out with the rich person only because you think you're going to gain something out of it, then that's the big mistake. You think that this person is going to be able to change your lot in life. This person can't change your lot in life. They would not hope to anyone but Hashem. If this person who is looking up to the rich person and hoping that they would make money, instead this person would put their effort into Hashem, into thanking Hashem, because Hashem is really the true source of whatever you have, they would be a lot better off. The reason people honor a wealthy man is in order to obtain some kind of benefit, he says. He says, to ensure that the benefits that are already, either they're already receiving it and they want to keep on getting it. And he says, but the rich man has absolutely no control over these matters. He says, for example, he can choose to give a needy person money, but whether or not this will actually happen is determined by Hashem alone. And even if the rich person does give $1 to somebody, if Hashem didn't want that person to have it, Hashem will find a way to take it away from this person. And so this rich person can't do anything for you. You can't put your trust, hope, or anything of that matter in this person. And he goes further and he says, nobody would be deserving of honor in their eyes other than a person whom Hashem has identified as having praiseworthy qualities. That's the person who's going to gain favor in Hashem's eyes, and he's going to get praiseworthy qualities. For which he deserves of being honored by Hashem. It says in the pasuk, for those whom honor me, I honor. What do we see from this pasuk? That instead of putting your effort into praising wealthy people, hanging out with them, giving them this so-called kavod that it's not really kavod, it's just your hope that you gain something out of it. Instead of spending that energy into running after that, which they can't change anything for you, spend your energy in thanking Hashem, talking to Hashem, trusting, believing, having faith in Hashem, that Hashem, because He's the one that's going to make everything happen. Whether it's through this wealthy person, whether it's through some other way, whether it's through some way you never would have even thought about, that happens so often. But that is the mindset that you need to have. Stop running after and trying to hang out with the wealthy, famous people, because they can't help you anyway. It's a very nice picture to think so, but it's not possible for them to change anything for your life if it's not decreed by Hashem. Now, he says the fate of people who flatter others in the pursuit of money and honor. He says, because the common folk, the regular people, act foolishly in honoring the wealthy people with various forms of honor in hope of gaining wealth and honor themselves, Hashem adds to their foolishness, and in regard to the various avenues and to employ to obtain their goal, and they become caught up in expending strenuous effort and great toil all their days in pursuit of the wealth and honor that they crave. If you guys remember, a couple of weeks ago we spoke about the concept that if you split your trust between full trust in Hashem and then putting some trust in what you do, your work, and you don't have the bitachon that all you need to do is ishtadlus, then it says, if Hashem decreed for you to have money, He's not going to not give you the money because you don't trust Him. He's just going to make it that if your trust is in the handiwork that you do, then great. You're going to need to work your 20-hour days in order to make that happen. And it says the same thing over here. And it's not to say that it might not happen, but if you put your full trust in the fact that you're running after the rich person because you're looking for the riches and fame that this person might have for you, then if it's decreed for you to have such riches, you'll get it. But you're going to have to work really, really, really hard at this. You might have to be hanging out with this person for 40 years before you see anything out of it. That's what Hashem says. That's what we learned. Thus, preoccupied, they neglect what they are truly obligated to, expending effort for and hastening to, which is to fulfill their obligations toward Hashem. Meaning, don't spend your time running after a basar v'dam to help you, in the sense of that you hope that this rich person is going to help you gain honor and fame. Now, I just want to make sure you guys understand, if you're looking for a job, clearly go look for a job. Go to a wealthy person. Get into an industry. It's not talking about that. It's talking about the idea that you think that by you hanging out this person, things are going to change for you automatically. The rich person thinks that they're going to gain honor from people because he's so rich. And that's the mistake he makes. People are not drawn to your personality, Mr. Rich Man. If you have a great personality, they would have been drawn to it regardless of your money. The fact that you have money is why people are drawn to you. Mr. Rich Man, your personality is horrible. It's your money they're after. Just be careful. And you're making this big mistake thinking that everyone's in there for you. Really, all they want is your money. And the second they get it or have money on their own, they're gone. And the minute that you don't have what to offer, you're left without friends. And there's a story I spoke about the first time around when we learned Shaar Habitachon that I heard from my grandfather. And I'll repeat it now. My grandfather, I was once in his office and these two people came in to collect money. They were elderly people. This is a couple years back. My grandfather, Stern. And my grandfather came over to me and he said, Avrami, can you lend me $100? I don't have any cash. I want to give these guys tzedakah. I said, no problem. I gave him $100. That evening, I drove him home from the office. And I said, Zaidi, who are these people? And he says, let me tell you something. And he goes, when I came after the war to America, he says, I was an egg peddler. And these two people, I befriended these two people and they were my friends. Because then I got a second job as well throughout the day and I was a bus driver. And I peddled eggs in the early morning. Then I drove children to school. These two people, they were my friends. Then I got into the rug business. My grandfather was in the rug business for many years. According to him, he's still in the rug business. He's 97, Blian Har, by the way. And he said, I started in the rug business and we became very wealthy. And there was a point in my grandfather's life that he was extremely wealthy. And he says, these two people, they were my friend. He says, and then the Bashefa Magashikta Klap, says Hashem punished him and took away his money. He lost all his money. And these two people, they were my friends. He goes, I want to tell you something, Avrami. He goes, he says, I give you a bracha that you should make a lot of money in your life. But don't make the mistake thinking that when you have money, you're going to buy yourself some new friends. Because the day that comes that you can't afford those friends, you won't be left with any friends. A rich person cannot help you in any way you think so. Remember that it's Hashem that is the provider. We are merely a shaliach. And if Hashem wants to use a conduit of some person, whether the rich person or somebody else, in order to get to you what he needs, what he's decreed for you, you'll have that. But don't go out there trying to, like my grandfather says, buy yourself a friend. Don't go out there and try to be friends of the wealthy people only because they're rich. They could be rich and you could be their friend for their other reasons. Because they're good people. Because you look up to them because they have good midos, because they're bal chesed, or because they learn well and you want to learn with them. But don't befriend them because they're rich and they go on nice vacations and you think that you can get part of that. You're not going to get anything more or anything less by going in that avenue. What you'll get is what Hashem decreed for you to have. And if you think you're going to prove it wrong by saying, oh, this rich man once gave me $100,000, God is going to find a way, whether in one lump sum of costing you $100,000 one day, or the way you don't see it. Cost you a few thousand here, and things like, oh, why did this happen with them? Yeah, it's going to happen. You know why? Because you weren't deserving of that $100,000. Why you got it to begin with is a different reason. We can't start thinking about what the reasons are. But the truth is that anything that you have is only because of Hashem and not because of any person or not even yourself. You are required to do your hishtadlus, and that's the part that you're required in order to gain your basic sustenance. And if it's decreed for you to have more than that, you will get it. Thank you, everyone, for joining us all here today. and I love you all.